All right, we're flicking through a report so fresh it's not even out yet, but we are very happy to have a draft this morning. It is ValuStrat's Residential Capital Values Report for September. They do this every month, and it sheds some interesting light on what's happening to prices that are usually the bargains, if you like, those that are a little bit cheaper. We're very pleased to be joined in the studio by ValuStrat's Mr. Research, Haider Tuaima. Haider, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's start by explaining exactly what kind of properties we're talking about here, because we're talking about those that normally in a compound, in an apartment building, in a community, would be the cheaper ones, would be the bargains. Why?
Well, before I answer that question, let's go back a little bit in time. Initially, after the pandemic, there was a huge interest and desirability for larger units, particularly for villas. Now, that scaled down to townhouses as well, and then larger apartments. And as of the beginning of this year, we started to see a very visible trend for apartments, normal apartments. You'll find them anywhere in the city. They're the majority of the city. And that's it, without any much of the details of what these apartments, their sizes, or what they are enjoying in terms of views, or on which floors they are, and so on. What we are saying now is that now there is a visible trend of those units, apartments or villas or townhouses, that don't necessarily enjoy the best of views, are not necessarily on the highest of floors, and maybe not even have the best of the layouts. These are the ones that are currently seeing an increase in their valuations, noting that they're not more expensive than the ones with the better views, but they are seeing now a growth in their valuations. It seems that right now the market is going towards those, as you would mention, the bargain units.
Yeah, the language here is quite important. And you and I were having a chat before we went on air about how you describe this, because if you say affordable homes, as I did earlier, in the language you've used in your report, it sounds like you're talking about affordable communities, maybe a sports city, say. But that's not actually what we're talking about here, because some of these units can be in some very expensive buildings indeed. They're just the ones that, as you say, wouldn't be a top pick.
Well, they're all happening at the same time. So we are talking also about those properties that are, let's say, less than 1,000 dirhams per square foot, which is such as Dubai Sports City, which hasn't really increased in terms of their prices even since the pandemic. But in what we are saying is not necessarily just the affordable market. We're also talking examples. Burj Khalifa is an example. I mean, you cannot say that's affordable at all. But within Burj Khalifa, there are units that are facing the fountains, and there are on floors where everything you can see very clearly. But we're talking about even the units that are on the backside, which are not necessarily as desirable as the ones that are facing the fountains. Those units are now seeing increased valuation, growth in their valuations. But of course, we go back and say the ones that are facing the fountains are definitely far more expensive than the ones that are facing backwards.
Okay, so the less desirable units in a community or in an apartment are seeing their prices accelerate. How much? Give me an idea of what we're actually talking about.
Right, so instead of 2%, they're going to 3.2%. What we are saying is that those that are the highly desired units, the ones that enjoy the best of the views, that are on relatively high floors, or villas that are detached villas or semi-detached villas, those ones are perhaps seeing a growth of 2%, let's say, quarter on quarter, but the ones that are least desirable are going up about 3 or 3.2% on average. So this is something that we haven't seen before, and it seems that right now the market is heading towards those bargains, probably because the good ones already been taken.
Right, so they're available.
These ones are being available, yes.
Are we still seeing a gap in prices between the best views and the less desirable views, say, the roadside and the lakeside?
Yes, of course. When you do a valuation report, all of these impact the value in the end of the day in terms of its location and views. Age of the building, it has access to transport, connectivity, and so on and so forth. So that's what we measure in our reports, because this is a valuation-based index, and therefore we look at these things.
Is the size of that gap changing?
The size, well, again, it depends on location. It depends on, you have to, of course, inspect the property and check it. But there's no one number that I can give you right now.
Okay, so tell me what it means. If we look at this, what this means for people who are trying to buy property, the rise in value of those normally a bit more of a bargain units, what does it mean if they're rising like this? What does it tell us about the property market as well?
Well, they are rising at the moment, and they've been rising since the pandemic. The villas are rising at a lesser rate than they were last year, but still double digits. Apartments are just trying now to catch up. They are way below their 2014 peaks, and there are areas that are indeed considered perhaps bargains. I guess we just have to do our research and find out. It depends. If you are, of course, if you're talking about a waterfront property, those properties are already on the high end. If you go inwards, on the outskirts of the city, obviously these are where the ones you find below the 1,000 dirhams per square foot.
And that was going to be my question, actually. Are the number of sort of pockets of affordability that we have shrinking? Are there less affordable properties out there now?
It depends on, again, the definition affordable. No, there are areas that are still relatively cheap. We're talking areas such as Dubai Sports City, such as Dubai Silicon Oasis. We're talking about IMPZ or Dubai Production City. They are still relatively affordable, even as compared to 2020 levels. So
Okay.
they still haven't yet picked up as much.
Okay, so this change in values, this rise in values for some of the less desirable properties, how does it change the market? How does it change who buys what? What are the knock-on effects?
The change in values?
Yeah, how does it change who buys what? How does it change who can afford to buy in, or how the market is working?
Well, the market is on an upswing cycle at the moment, and it seems that this is going to continue for the rest of the year. It is just giving a little bit more confidence that if you were to invest today, your investment is still in safe hands.
Okay, one of the reasons we like the ValuStrat reports is because it's got lots of charts and not that many words. You are outlining the bits that matter. Looking at your charts for gains, and you talk about it being on an upward swing, how long can these gains continue? What would be normal? What would you expect to happen to the curve as you see it for
How
property
long?
here?
Sorry?
How long can these gains continue? How much does it look like this market has left to
So
run?
that's the crystal ball question. This year, as I mentioned, this year should be fine. We don't see any downward trends by the end of the year. However, we do put a little bit of a caution, and we will say, right, at the end of the year, you need to look at especially those that are the waterfront properties, the luxury, prime market. Those we need to figure out, maybe they could be maybe overpriced. We have to do a little bit of due diligence on those properties. Perhaps by mid next year we might see a little bit of a change in the market, maybe stabilization. 20
seconds, super fast. I noticed that off-plan registrations fell in this report. How come?
Right, so that's just the monthly number. It's actually very strange, and we saw that. The explanation could be because of the data just came in. Maybe it's going to come in next month or this month. So I think it's a coincidence, but generally speaking, off-plan properties, if you compare year on year, they are up. If you compare quarter on quarter, they are up. We will be releasing a quarter report, but just for the month of September, it seems that the off-plan properties are down.
Haider Tuaima is Director and Head of Real Estate Research for ValuStrat. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.